Hi girls, today is Wednesday, April 22nd, and this is the last lesson in this module. Okay, this is lesson 40, and online you'll see that it's titled Plodding Along. Our I can statement, I can solve word problems involving line plots. Now, we did line plots a little bit earlier in this module, and now we're just going to approach them again, but also answer some questions based on the line plot itself. I'm going to want you to pause this video periodically throughout so that you can make sure you get all of the information. So the first thing that you'll see is you'll see my data, and you'll see names. It's actually an alphabet family, so the names are just A, B, C, D, E, F. Just made it a little easier on me. And then the next column is the distance in miles. And I'm imagining that this is maybe the distance they ran in miles, maybe it's the distance they walked in miles. Person A ran a half mile, person B 1 mile, person C 1 3/4 miles, person D 1.5 miles, person E 2 1/4 miles, and person F 3/4 of a mile. So now what I want you to focus in on are the fractions themselves. And before we set up our line plot, before we put data on our line plot, we want to make sure that we have a common denominator. Right now we have denominators of 2 and 4. Now I want you to think, which unit is smaller, a half or a fourth? And I want you imagining our unit fraction board that we would pull out of our desk sometimes and started at the top with a hole and went all the way down to 12ths or 15ths, or I can't even remember. But 1/4 is a smaller unit than 1/2. So I'm going to decompose my halves into fourths. So the first thing I have is 1/2. And 1/2 is the same as 2/4. And this is what I suggest, even as you do the online lesson, make sure that in that data, you rewrite the fractions with the same unit. Excuse me. I have my 1 whole. I have 1 3/4. I have 1.5. Well, 1, and I already know that a half is 2/4. I already have fourths here, and I already have fourths here. So I just had to decompose that 1/2 to 2/4 and that 1.5 to 1 2/4. So now let's think about the fractions and mixed numbers we have here, because the range is going to determine how I need to set up my line plot, which, remember, a line plot looks like a number line. So I have numbers or fractions that are smaller than a whole, like 1/2 and 3/4 are smaller than a whole. So I can't start my number line at 1. So I'm thinking I'm going to start it at 0. So 0, 1, 2. Well, here I have 2 and 1/4. So I have 2 and a little bit more. So I can't stop my line plot at 2. I have to bump it up to 3. So you should have your data all written in front of you. I erased mine to have more space, but I did set up my line plot, the number line part of my line plot. And just like we talked about, my range is from 0 to 3. Now, we decomposed some of the units and we found a common unit or a common denominator of fourths. So that means on my line plot, I have to decompose the wholes into fourths. So now I have fourths. 0, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1 whole. 1 1/4, 1 2/4, 1 3/4, 2 wholes. 2 1/4, 2 2/4, 2 3/4, 3. So now that I have my line plot set up, and you'll notice I even put a title because this line plot is talking about distance in miles. So these numbers on the number line part of our line plot represent miles. They represent the distance in miles. So now let's think back, and you should have it right in front of you, to the data we had. Person A ran 1/2 a mile, which we rewrote an equal fraction of 2/4. Person B ran 1 mile. Person C, 1 3/4. Person D, 1 1/2, which is equal to 1 2/4. Person E, 2 1/4. And person F was 3/4. Just going to make my X's a little bit darker. So now I might be asked some questions about this data. Like, what's the difference? How much farther did the longest, or how much farther was the distance of the person that ran the longest versus the person that ran the shortest? First, I have to key in on who ran the longest distance. Well, the longest distance is the highest number or highest fraction, which is 2 1/4. The shortest distance is, well, who ran the least? And that was 2/4. So if I'm finding the difference, it's how much more did this person run? So in order to do that, I have to subtract. 2 1/4 minus 2/4. I don't have enough fourths to take 2 of them. So remember, I'm going to rewrite my mixed number. This is going to be a 1. And 4/4. I still have that extra 1/4. So this is 1 5/4 minus the 2/4, which gives me 1 3/4. What some girls like to do is take that 2 1/4 and just make it into an improper fraction. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 9/4 minus 2/4 is 7/4, which equals 1 3/4. You get the same answer. One strategy, another strategy. Okay, two different strategies. So person E ran 1 3/4 miles more than person A. Now, another question, a separate question that I'm going to ask is who ran twice as far as person F? Who ran twice as far as person F? That was person F, 3/4. Twice as far. If you're doing something twice, how many times are you doing it? 2 times. So it's 3/4 times 2. I end up with 6/4, which is equal to 1 2/4. 1 2/4 was person D. So person D ran twice as far as person F. When you watch the video online, the online program, lesson 40, your problem set matches up to part of that lesson. So you can actually do the work on your paper along with them when you do look at the data table. Make sure you find those common units and then make sure you make your line plot and then answer any questions that you are asked concerning the data from the line plot. This wraps up Module 5 of our fractions. We're going to be moving into decimals, which are related to fractions. And you know what decimals are, ladies? Money, 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 money. Okay. And I also just wanted to share with you, I don't know if you see this little bum in the corner here. Caroline made that for me during, I guess, what she was calling her art class today. Save the drama for your llama, ladies. I will see you tomorrow.